help them in high-stress situations. I think that there are more creative ways to protect first responders than Resolution 92. And they may be more difficult and more confusing, but I think it's important. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
William Barr.
Hello, and thank you for an opportunity to speak to you again. I spoke, did some other people here the last time memorializing resolutions came before you. And I just, what I talked about then was how powerful it was for us to, I was in a meeting and I was able to say to a state senator and an assemblyman, ask them if they will support the elected officials of municipalities up and down the Hudson Valley in their opposition to the Pilgrim Pipeline. And that was a powerful thing for me to be able to say. And those are all memorializing resolutions. And that had an effect. I believe it did. And that's kind of what I said the last time I was here, but I got the feeling that kind of fell on deaf ears. So this time, if I may, I'm going to be more direct and speak what I believe is going on with the proposal to ban memorializing resolutions. I believe that there are members present who desire not to be exposed for their opposition to social and environmental justice issues. And I believe that that's what this resolution is really about, is for you to be able to hide behind that. And I think that doesn't help democracy, and it doesn't give me a lot of respect for certain people here. So that's my belief. I don't think I'm alone in that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Sue Rosenberg.
Hi, my name is Sue Rosenberg. I'm from Saugerties, New York. First, I want to thank Hector for his opening speech, because you encapsulated a lot of what I wanted to say about the importance of these memorializing resolutions. I also want to just speak to the bravery of people who've come up and spoke, sometimes in not the language we're all comfortable hearing, but representing a wide range of Ulster County residents. I want to speak against this attempt to prohibit memorializing resolutions in Ulster County Legislature. We live in very complex times, growing more complex every day. It's clear that decisions, regulations, laws made on state and federal levels directly affect our lives. Pollution doesn't know any physical or state boundaries. Civil liberties and civil rights, education, budgets from the federal and state directly affect and impact this county and our towns and villages. Decisions are being made about health care rights now will affect Ulster County dramatically. So why don't we take the time to think about it and pass resolutions? I work with the Coalition Against Pilgrim Pipeline, and it's been really very important that this body, as well as local municipalities, have passed memorializing resolutions against Pilgrim Pipeline, because this is a way for their constituents, our voices, to be heard at state levels, which are the deciders of these decisions. I'm not really very good at this speaking, but I believe it's your obligation as county lawmakers to hear our voices, our information, to argue, to listen, to take the time to find, and if you find common voice, to pass resolutions. Putting blinders on and saying that you'll only discuss and act on local issues is short-sighted and limits democracy. So I urge you all not to pass a resolution that would stop memorializing resolutions would bring the county out to
Please
speak.
wrap up your comments.
I did.
Thank you.
Joel Mason.
Good evening, members of the legislature. I'll start by saying I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I understand that our constitutional system works by striking a balance between the rights of the majority to govern and the rights of minorities to be protected from the potential unlimited power of the majority. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution were added to redress this concern, and it has been a fundamental principle in American governance for over 200 years. Now the Ulster County Legislature is faced with a choice, whether to block future memorializing resolutions or to permit them to continue. Concerned Ulster County residents have spoken out very clearly against the resolution. Rather than pursue a divisive vote, I would like to propose an alternative, find a compromise. I'm old enough to remember a time when compromise was a guiding principle in government deliberations, where members of both parties worked together to find solutions. In Washington, Congress has unfortunately reached a point where bipartisanship seems like ancient history, and legislators take extreme positions on almost every issue, making the notion of working together nearly impossible. Tonight, I urge you, our Ulster County legislators, to resolve this issue without going to the partisan mat, remembering that today's majority may almost certainly be tomorrow's minority. Please reconsider this motion to block memorializing resolutions by striking a balance for those who think they're a waste of time, and those who, like myself, think they're an important tool for the people to express their concerns. You may not find a solution that will please everyone, but it will affirm the best values of the American governing tradition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Nolan.
Good evening.
Legislators, thank you. I'm speaking on Resolution 91 tonight in the hopes that people will rethink this. I'm also speaking on behalf of Catskill Mountain Keeper in our role as advocating for the environment in the Catskills. Memorializing resolutions have been tremendously helpful to us in our work. They were very helpful on fracking. As you've heard, they're very helpful for the Pilgrim Pipeline's work. They're helpful for protecting the Hudson. They are different from, stronger than, and additive to phone calls and letters. And it's not a matter of public comments, but rather of focused attention and articulation of public values. We can have public speaking on all these issues every month, but no, when we have an issue that's facing us, we come together to address it in a focused way. So I ask you to please withdraw this resolution. I'd also like to speak on Resolution 92, which has such a praiseworthy goal, but we need a separate law to deal with this goal, rather than mashing together protection of law enforcement officers and first responders, who are heroes of our society, with protection of people in categories that need special protection, because those people have been lifted up by a law that requires what is often broad spread and systemic hatred to be addressed as such. So these two things are just not the same thing. We need to provide these protections for our law enforcement officials in addition to what we already have, and recognize that things have changed and they're under special threats these days, but we need to draft a separate law. Do not just take this easy path. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
TJ Briggs.
Two minutes, Mr. Briggs.
Changing hats. I'm here as the president of the Elmville First Aid and Rescue Squad, and I'm going to speak on Resolution 92. I've been fortunate enough in my life to wear both the uniform of a police officer, uniform, the gear of a firefighter for the last 40 plus years and 3,000 calls, that as an EMS provider. I've heard your comments that hate crime is to a specific group of people, and I understand that. I feel that this is a tool. I also heard how we're heroes, and I wonder when's the last time you stopped by your local ambulance corps, firehouse, or police station and said thanks, or bought them a cup of coffee. Forget about the donuts. You know, we're all heroes. You know, we always say how soldiers are heroes, and we always say that when they're in a black car, in a box going down the road. So call me a hero tonight. Call everybody that serves a hero. This is a good resolution. You put some teeth in some things, and maybe somebody will think twice. I can tell you, I've been in an ambulance when I had 15 people surrounding it, rocking it to tip it over, because they didn't like who I was and what I represented. And now I go to those areas with state police escort, and that has gone on for years. I was a police officer when, not 5 minutes ago, the spouse that was beating the heck out of the other spouse was being arrested, and then they attacked me because I was the guy arresting the spouse. Okay? As far as I'm concerned, these are hate crimes because they're attacking the uniform, whether it's, you know, the bathroom you use, the God you pray to, or the way you pray. It's all a hate crime. This gives some strength. Maybe it'll make somebody think once in a while. And I really take exception to the lady that said it's just going to divide communities of color, because I'm born and raised in Ellenville, and I got to tell you, we don't have that problem. So when you say that,
Please wrap it
make
up,
that division.
please.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lanny Walter.
My name is Lanny Walter. I'm from Saugerties. The hate crime law was enacted in the year 2000. It echoes the civil rights law, the human rights law, which prohibits discrimination against all kinds of minority people. That definition has expanded through the years. A hate crime law is specific. It serves a purpose to protect classes of people who have been victimized in our society. The police are honored in our society. First responders are honored in our society. Why is this resolution being advocated to ride the back of the Black Lives Matter law? Not law, but effort and campaign. The police have all kinds, and first responders have all kinds of protection under the law. It's not as if attacks that Mr. Briggs talks about aren't crimes. They're not. It's not like they're not prosecuted. And if there's need for more laws to protect the valuable work that people who wear the uniform need, then let's enact laws that protect those people. Not let's drain the law against hate crimes by expanding it, and who knows where that expansion will lead. You are walking down a foolish path being taken advantage of. Those of you who are going to vote yes to enact this resolution. I am totally respectful of what law enforcement does in our society, and because I talk like this doesn't mean I'm not respectful. It is absolutely ridiculous to think that. But these hate crime
Please wrap it
laws
up.
were passed for a reason, and they protect a certain group of people, and it's not the police or the first responders. Thank you.
Thomas Wanning.
Hi. When the chairman referred to the effort to outlaw memorializing resolutions as a way of getting away with petty partisan politics, I was reminded of the fact that the U.S. Senate, I think in 1828, I may have the date wrong, passed a law outlawing discussion of slavery in Congress. After all, the Constitution had decided the issue. There was nothing the legislature could do about it, so why should they talk about it? I came to this city, Ulster, and I came to on the ferry from Rhinecliff several months before the bridge was opened, because my family had just bought a house here. I was 7 years old, and so I was alive in 1956 when Adlai Stevenson said that what brought us together was more than what separated us. And I think that may have been true then, but it is sadly not true now. And the reasons may have to do with what President Eisenhower said on his departure day, which is that we must beware undue influence by the military-industrial complex and the corporations who make billions of dollars and funnel them to legislators in the U.S. Congress. We live, what is at stake in this democracy? The question before us is, do we live in a democracy where the people have a say in our governments, or do we live in a top-down corporatocracy in which a bought and paid for Congress passes laws at the behest of corporate lobbyists, which are to be enforced by a billionaire president known for bankrupting 4 businesses and stiffing his investors, workers, and contractors? And now our county legislatures wish to attempt to shut our mouths so that we have no collective voice in response. I have only one question. Why are those who support this resolution so hostile to democracy? I don't know.
Hillary Harvey.
Hi, I'm from Kingston. I want to second all of the nuanced concerns people have expressed so eloquently about Resolution 92. I agree with them. And I'm also glad to see Resolution 135 in support of the Affordable Care Act back this month after being defeated last month, despite the many constituents who spoke in favor of it. And I find it interesting that it's the memorializing resolutions that we're pretty much talking about tonight. This is what sparks conversation between legislators and their constituents, as the minority leader and Alderman Coop both indicated. At the February 15th Ulster County Legislature meeting, there was a discussion about bans on memorializing resolutions. Legislators agree that memorializing resolutions don't create any policy, and the argument against them maintains that because of that point, they are a waste of this body's time. That same night, another memorializing resolution, 425 of 2016, to condemn violence and hate speech and express solidarity with all those targeted, was defeated 11-8. Violence and hate speech was supported as free speech by 11 legislators. So if memorializing resolutions don't create policy, then how does voting against one that would condemn violence and hate speech be a way to protect free speech? There was no policy in that resolution which would outlaw violence and hate speech. There was no policy in that resolution to chip away at free speech. There's no policy in a memorializing resolution. So if this body feels protective of free speech, then how can a ban on memorializing resolutions be passed? A memorializing resolution allows this body a unified voice to communicate with your constituents and the community at large about where this body stands on issues. A vote in favor of banning the tool of memorializing resolutions is essentially a vote against free speech for the individuals in this legislature. It's a vote against free speech for the citizens of Ulster County who would use that tool to participate in a conversation with their elected officials. And it's a vote against free speech for the unified voice of this representative body. It may be time-consuming, but it's not a waste of this body's time.
Please wrap up your comments.
I will, just one sentence. It affords the legislature the freedom to voice opposition when necessary and to express the ideals that matter to your constituents. Surely you can make time for that.
Philip Guerreri.
Philip Guerreri, Kingston. Blank, you cannot have more than one master in front of you. What's the blank? Who's the public of a Republican? Taxed enough already, party? How dare you want to put a regulation upon God's gift of cancer, God's gift of the civility of war, God's gift of a fetus to be a soldier for the Lord? No memorializing. 1937, GERN in caps, small a, New York. National Anglo-Zionist Illuminati, God upon the money, God upon the judge. And if you go to God King James' first capital of his first empire, God is now on the government wall of the Common Council chambers. Thank you.
Jeremy Swift.
If I knew we were going to have word salad, I'd have brought some dressing.
Hi. First of all, I want to say something about the memorializing resolutions. We're in a time where apathy is rampant, encouraged by one political party, provoked by the other political party. Anyone in this room who votes to diminish the voice of their constituents in state government does not deserve to sit in that chair.
Word.
And I hope that everyone in this room remembers who you are, because you do not deserve to sit in that chair. Second, memorializing Resolution 92. It's illogical, it perverts the spirit of the law as written. It is written, I read the summary. It lists statistics that aren't correct. The FBI statistics tell us that attacks on law enforcement officers are down, have been down for decades, continue to be down. Law enforcement officers and first responders already receive special protections under the law. Any assault of a law enforcement officer, is automatically a misdemeanor, is automatically a felony. So these laws already exist. All right? So what we're doing is we're taking a law that was designed to protect people who have a historical grievance of being persecuted, of being disenfranchised, both by individuals in the country and also by the state, also by law enforcement, and giving those protections to the most politically protected class of people in the state, which are people who act as the enforcers for the state. It doesn't make any sense. It's counterintuitive. If there are conflicts, if there are tensions between the community and law enforcement, if you are in a position, if you are in a job where you're where you've been maligned, where you've got this reputation that you know how to battle, and you're trying to battle all this perception, this negative perception, maybe the problem is not the spin. Maybe the problem isn't that it's the customer's fault for not buying. If you want a solution, look for a solution that deals with the causes of this tension, instead of trying to paper it over and turn people who resist arrest into federal felons. Thank you.
The last speaker signed up is Callie James.
Hi, I am Callie Jane. I am here tonight to speak out about memorializing Resolution 92 and urge you to vote no. I want to start by saying I come from a family of firefighters and a family of police officers. I'm a Kingston resident. I am a Black woman, and I'm a community organizer with Citizen Action of New York. And tonight I'm not only speaking on behalf of myself, I'm speaking on behalf of an entire chapter that voted to take a stance on this because it is just that important. Well, we have to understand that this resolution, the unintended or the intended consequences are going to target some of the most vulnerable populations in our area. A lot of people who are impacted, a lot of people who might have mental illness. And while, again, I come from a family of first responders, it is important to look at the fact that this is something that is going to hurt a lot of people. We've been fighting in Ulster County and across the state for some semblance of humanity to protect people of color, LGBTQ people, women, and other protected classes. And to classify someone's chosen profession as a protected class within our penal system is quite honestly a slap in the face to the disenfranchised communities that we've been trying to protect. Those people who cannot take off the thing that they are being targeted for. So I wish I could say that I was surprised to be standing here having this conversation, but I'm standing in front of a legislature where the members, many members, didn't feel it was important enough to ensure that transgender people in our community couldn't be discriminated against. And so now we know for sure what your priorities are, and we see you, and your community sees you, and I want you to know that. Thank you.
We're now going to move on to resolutions. Resolution 91, amending the rules of order to prohibit memorializing resolutions, is on the agenda for a first reading, and as is a proposed rules change, it is not on the agenda for any action, and therefore there is no agenda item to debate or move upon.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I move
Legislator
to refer
Rodriguez,
back,
why do you rise?
I move to refer Resolution 91 back to committee.
Resolutions on first reading are not debatable. Therefore, there is no action to be taken, and then there is no action to be avoided by a referral to committee. I therefore declare that to be an illegal motion and do not
At this time, I
entertain it.
appeal the decision of the chair.
On the appeal of the rule of the chair, all in favor?
Long roll.
On the appeal, Alan?
In my career as a legislator for almost 3.5 years, I've put up 6 memorializing resolutions. I've talked about some pretty important issues like reforming healthcare laws on the New York state and federal level. Everybody, when you go to the doctor's office and you fill out HIPAA forms, it's like 3 to 10 pages of paperwork. You can't even get access to your own healthcare records because essentially the lobby...
Legislator Allen, if you pause for one moment. We are explaining our vote right now on a long roll on a referral. So please keep your comments, I'm sorry, it's on the appeal. So you explain your vote on the appeal of the rule of the chair, please.
I'm getting to that.
Get there faster, please.
Okay, yes, sir. So, essentially, you can't get access to your own healthcare records when you need them. If you have a problem with a relative, I had a situation where my father was the victim of some negligence and he was injured.
Was I the cause of the victim of your father's negligence?
I'm trying to explain why memorializing resolutions are important, why I'm going to go to it.
It's on the appeal of the rule of the chair, Legislator Allen.
Okay, I have never put up one partisan word in any of my memorializing resolutions. I write them and research them pretty much 100% myself with minimal help from the legislative staff on revisions. So I don't tax any of the resources of the legislative staff. I've never put one partisan word in any of my resolutions. They are important, they do make changes Susan Zimmett had a law change when she was a legislator that got.
Legislator Allen, you know, we've let you go on for a really long time about your memorializing resolutions. Why are you opposed to the rule of the chair?
I'm voting yes. We'll save it. We'll save this for next month.
Bartels.
I oppose the ruling of the chair.
I oppose the ruling of the chair.
You're voting no. You're voting no.
They know that you know. I oppose the ruling of the chair.
I know.
That's fine.
Anyway, go ahead.
We can accept that as a
As a no.
yes.
As a no.
Is it yet?
Belfilio.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the rules of the legislature are set on this issue, so I agree with your ruling that Legislator Rodriguez's call to order is out of order.
Berkey.
I oppose the ruling of the chair and would like to explain very briefly why. In committee meeting at the Laws and Rules last week, you asked Legislator Rodriguez and the others in the meeting if they could explain why a memorializing resolution would be any stronger or any different than a letter. And you said that you would not send it to the floor if he could explain why. And I think that he adequately explained why. And if you would just indulge me for a moment, I'd just like to say that you said then that you would vote against it. You did not. Memorializing resolution is not, is more effective, as you've heard from all the people who have spoken tonight, more effective in engaging the public in our democratic process. It focuses the discussions that we have. It allows us to speak on their behalf. And as one of our constituents said, we should not have a gag rule such as that was passed in the Congress in the 1830s against the abolitionists' right.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you to call the question?
So no, I'm explaining why.
In due fairness to Legislator Berkey, she is explaining why she opposes.
Why I oppose exactly what you did, which is sending it to the floor when you asked our leader if he could explain why it was not, why a letter was not as powerful as a memorializing resolution. It is not as powerful as a memorializing resolution, and you did not vote against sending it to the floor. That is why I object, and that is why many of us object. Thank you.
I oppose the call by the chair.
DeLon.
I'm in opposition.
Donaldson.
Okay, here.
One for yes, two for no.
One for yes, two for. I think Dave's in opposition. He's in opposition. All right, move on. Get him back. Get him back and then.
He can be a pass.
He's a pass for the moment. Move on.
Fabiano.
I support the ruling of the chair.
Gerantine. Green.
No.
Hepner.
Oppose.
Lapp.
I support the chair.
Litz.
I'd like to explain. This is the first reading, amending the rules of order to prohibit memorializing resolution. We haven't even had the reading, yet we're going to vote whether to oppose or agree with the chairman's. It seems like we're rushing things. Why don't we go to the first reading, and then if it's decided it needs to be amended or whatever needs to happen, it go back to committee to have that done. So it seems to me we're putting the cart before the horse, and we're rushing through something that I think everyone in this room thinks is very important. Most of the people that spoke tonight spoke on amendment or resolution number 91. Why are we rushing this? Why don't we do the first reading and then make a conscious decision on whether it needs to go back to committee or not? I support the chair because I don't want to rush through this, it's too important.
Lopez.
Yes.
Lauren.
No.
Mayo.
Yes.
Maloney.
I support the ruling of the chair.
John Parody.
Support.
Richard Parody.
Pass.
Roberts.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
No.
Ronk.
In support of the rule of the chair, the purpose of requiring a first reading is to provide a period of deliberation. There will be a second reading, and the matter will then appear for action on the agenda and will appear for debate in this body, and it will be available for referral back to committee at that point if members of the legislature so choose. For those reasons, and in support of our rules, I support the ruling of the chair.
Worrell.
I support the ruling of the chair.
Donaldson.
I do not believe the rule of the legislature precludes a first reading from being referred back to committee, so I vote no on that ruling.
Parody Richard.
I support the ruling of the chair, and nobody has given a reason why they want it referred back to committee. So I can't support it.
By a vote of 13 to 10, the rule of the chair stands.
My vote's a no, too.
Yes, I'm no.
We got it.
We got it.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Legislator Mayo, do we have resolutions to move from non-consent to consent? Bipartisan cooperation, I love it, Hector.
See that? Right
Is it working? There it is.
Can we?
It's on.
You can hear me?
No.
I hear you.
We would like to move resolutions 81, 109, 136, and 137 to consent.
I second that.
And could we also move?
I was going to say, but I was waiting.
Well, I was going to do one at a time.
The PA system is not working on this one.
That is.
This is working. Hold on a second.
123 from consent to non-consent.
Can you please repeat the ones that are moving to consent?
Yes,
Sorry.
let's start again. We are moving from non-consent to consent, resolution 81, 109, 136, 137, from consent to non-consent, 123.
Thank you.
Which was what we discussed.
No, I know. I just like to.
Second.
On the consent agenda?
We are a short yes with resolution 76, abstention with Mary Warwo, and I believe that's it.
You don't need abstentions, right? We are a short. We're a short yes. With one abstention on which one? Oh, on CBG, which is Family Woodstock. Thank you. All right. What, which one was that? For the record?
No,
76.
Repco, 47.
That's not in the consent agenda.
47 is not in the consent. Okay, like I said before, we're a short yes. Thanks.
The resolutions in the consent agenda are adopted by a vote of 23 to 0, with the exception of Resolution 76, Family of Woodstock, with 2 abstentions, legislators Berkey and Warrow.
Moving to the non-consent agenda.
Resolution 47, authorizing the chairman of the legislature to call public hearings to satisfy the public participation requirement for the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, Department of Planning.
Legislator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, actually, I want to thank Legislator Maloney, Chair of Economic Development and Vice Chair, for bringing this back forward. As some of you know, we've been having discussions with the county executive about how, from a process standpoint, how we go about figuring out what we put our CDBG applications in for. And it's still an ongoing issue with the executive. One thing I'm hoping that we'll straighten out this week or next week maybe. And I just want to thank Legislator Maloney again for making sure that it made it to the floor. So thank you, sir.
Legislator Belfilia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as we heard the many staff members from RUPCO speak tonight, I have a personal experience with RUPCO. Besides, as a town councilman, applying for a Main Street grant, that they wrote the application for the town. But they do more than just help people get home ownership or repair their homes. They also help people stay in their homes. I had a constituent a couple of years ago who lost her position, just put a down payment and got a mortgage for a house, and she lost her job. And RUPCO was very instrumental in getting her the help she needed, the legal help and the expertise to starve off her mortgage for a year until she got back on her feet and was able to repay her mortgage again. So it's much more than just money for down payments or to fix somebody's roof or to hire contractors. And I just want this legislature to know it, and I wholeheartedly support RUPCO. Thank you. Let me guess.
On the resolution? Legislator Gerentine.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple comments. I have to state...
Legislator Gerentine, as you're abstaining, you probably shouldn't speak on the resolution.
Thank you, very true.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And with that,
On the resolution.
we are a short yes with one abstention, Legislator Durante.
We're a short yes with one abstention, Legislator Berkey.
The resolution is adopted 21-0 with 2 abstentions, Legislators Berkey and Gerentine.
Resolution 88, adopting proposed local law number 14 of 2016, a local law of the County of Ulster for the regulation of pet sellers.
Legislator Bartels.
Second. I actually want to thank Legislator Chairman Ronk for the deliberative process that this piece of legislation has gone through. I've struggled with it through the process, and I appreciate that all the parties were brought to the table, concerns were heard, and changes were made. It's long held, and patience, I think, wins out. I'm going to support it today, and I just want to thank you.
On the resolution, Legislator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, I want to echo what Legislator Bartel said. I know that you've been sort of like, living this for quite some time. I remember more than a few times sitting in Laws and Rules, and yes. Let's just say that you endured a lot, and I just want to thank you again for persevering.
Thank you, Legislator Rodriguez. Legislator Parity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to comment on this. I appreciated your remarks before. It was a work in progress. It was a lot of negotiations and give and take. And I think you all have done a good job of this. I just have to read something to you, if I might. This was back in March 27th last year, almost a year ago. I'll just take the excerpts from it, and it says that our elected leader was very critical that the American Kennel Club and others had blocked the proposed legislation, and a woman was arrested down Gardner Way, and it would have been prevented had this legislation been passed. Now, it was a good start to a good piece of legislation. His comments didn't have to be embellished, they didn't have to be exaggerated, and they were patently unfair. And if I just might, remembering the Muppets, I'm going to award the executive one Pinocchio nose for his unnecessary comments for a good piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Perry. Before we take the vote, without coming down because my comments are very brief, I just want to thank all the partners who helped. I know I thanked a few in my speech, but I want to thank all the partners who helped in this process. I think that we've come to something really great. On the resolution.
We are a short yes with 1 no. Legislator Lash.
We're a short yes.
The resolution is adopted 22-1.
Resolution number 89, adopting proposed local law number 17 of 2016, a local law prohibiting cyberbullying in Ulster County.
Legislator Donaldson.
Oh, you do I want to speak?
We run an efficient ship around here.
Alrighty, very good. I got basically 60% of teenagers 16 to 18 have reported to either cyberbullied or have been cyberbullied or both. So I respect that when the county executive attempted to take on this very serious problem of cyberbullying. But addressing cyberbullying by creating new crimes and making criminals out of teenagers is counterproductive, and it conflicts with the intentions of the existing state laws. This kind of right-wing pipeline to prison thinking just creates more victims and will make the problem worse. The Dignity for All Students Act mandates educational, non-punitive approaches to address bullying and harassment in the school setting. They empower educators, they empower the teenagers to change the culture without creating new crimes. This law will not change the culture. The executive's original press release with the original resolution had repeat teenagers offenders facing a felony. That changed by committee work, and I compliment the committees that worked on that. I happen to be one of them. The problem still lies in that the press release, as well as committee work, is done with no input from the schools or community until all the superintendents signed a letter in opposition. Then the schools were approached, but we still do not have a letter of support. Laws such as these need collaboration with the community, with the schools, not press releases with a Zoolander pose and expecting to change the culture. This legislation criminalizes acts of teenage cyberbullying and implements a punitive policy that will be ineffective, wasteful, discriminatory, particularly for teenagers in the lower socioeconomic demographics. Teenagers don't change habits by us passing laws. It is also constitutionally unsound. The Supreme Court has consistently protected the First Amendment by calling for regulations only in certain limited circumstances. And this does not fit those limited circumstances. The legislation is quite vague. I could quote from it. Anything that will cause harm to a minor's reputation or the minor's relationship with the minor's parents, the family members, friends, peers, employers, and school administrators and faculty. Is there anything that is not touched? Is there anything in the minors relationships that are not up for scrutiny? Albany County's cyberbullying law was struck down for being too broad and for criminalizing protected speech. There are more effective alternatives in addressing cyberbullying, like enhancing the Dignity for All Students Act, that can be implemented without criminalizing youth. It is not an easy fix by any means. But if we work together with the schools and the community, we can bring about change. We need to build on that what we have with county resources through programs and disseminating information. What reminds me of, I reminded not too long ago, the Ellenville School District did this wonderful thing about drug abuse. And some of the drawings and some of the commercials that were made by some of these high school students were unbelievably good. And things like that, that's what helps change the culture. And that's where we should be going to try to change the culture. We can use the buses, we can use media advertising, billboards and such that are drawn by high school students. That's the way we can actually do it. Let's not create more victims, particularly that we have no county program to address this at all. We have no county program in line. So I will be voting no.
Team.
Thank you, Chairman Malone, or Sub-Chairman, or whatever. Dave, I have to disagree with what you said there. Basically, when this law was put into place, I got a call from the Police Association, the Ulster County Chiefs Association, and they had some concerns about the law. They were not contacted about the law. They also said that the superintendents of the schools were not contacted. I relayed that to Chairman Ronk. I gave him the numbers of people to call, and he addressed those issues with the Association of Police Superintendents of Ulster County, and also with the different school districts. And from that, they had meetings, and that's how they came about with the law in place here. So there was input from 2 other agencies that, Dave, you said were not part of it. Saying that, I know they were brought into the conversation, they had input into this final law.
Legislator Bill Figlio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to, through the chair to Legislator Donaldson, I want to correct him about the Ellenville students who created these ads and media projects. It was about drugs, and it was for the Ulster Prevention Council. It was their yearly media contest, and they come in every year. I used to be the legislative board member of Ulster Prevention Council. Anyway, regardless, I think the reason why the school districts were so upset with this local law in the beginning is because we're constantly asking them to police our children. That's not their jobs. It's their jobs to educate our children, not to be the police force, not to be the judge and jury of our children. It's our responsibility as parents, and if we can't do it, then it's the responsibility of the local government. And that's what this law does. This law puts the responsibility of enforcement on the local government, not the school districts. It is not going to produce a generation of felons in Ulster County. If you're a 16-year-old kid and you have an unopened can of beer in your car, you get arrested and charged with underage possession of alcohol. Is that any different than some of the things in this cyber bullying law? If possession of marijuana is the same thing, underage drinking is the same thing. We have a local law that's coming to the legislature next month, which is going to raise the age of smoking to 21 and make it a crime for a kid to possess a pack of cigarettes, when the crime should be perpetrated against the person who sold them those cigarettes. So I am in total agreement with this law. I'm in total agreement with the penalties. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a kid makes a mistake. And in this local law, the kid that makes a mistake for the first time, he gets adjudicated into a diversion program. If the kid is over 16 years old, he should know better, especially if it's his second chance at bat. If he's over 16 and it's twice or 3 times, you know what? He needs correction before he becomes a felon. This law in no way produces felony for any of the acts that are in the 3 sections. What it's trying to do is prevent our children from becoming felons, keep the school districts doing what they're doing, teaching our children. Parents, raise your children, and if that's not enough, then it's the municipality that's got to be the law. So I'm in favor of this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Bartels.
Thank you. I I understand, and I think I understand, and I respect what this law is trying to do. I want to commend the attorneys from the county's attorney's office for their hard work, their diligence, and I respect their intent and their passion. But I have struggled through this process in part because of the age of criminal responsibility and the issues of criminalization of our children. In researching and trying to come to terms with this piece of legislation, I came across an amicus brief that was filed on behalf of a bunch of advocates groups in the Albany County law, and I want to read from it. It says, "We already know from study after study that zero tolerance policies are not effective in curbing bullying. To take these policies a step further by criminalizing so-called bullies, who are often children themselves, results in an even worse impact. The cyberbullying law not only feeds directly into the school-to-prison pipeline, but studies show that these policies discriminate greatly against students of color, students with disabilities, and LGBT youth. Further, the cyberbullying law does nothing to get at the root of the problem. The National School Climate Center has studied this issue at length and identifies both school climate reform and restorative practices as proven methods for preventing cyberbullying in the first place and for humanely addressing incidences of cyberbullying in ways that strengthen the school environment and support the students." I think we as a county have to commit to doing better with regards to education, prevention, and diversion. Believe that those are the first steps before passing laws to criminalize this action. And so today I will be a no.
Just a question, legislator, if I may. The brief was done by the students, amicus curiae it's called. What did the court do with that brief? Did they allow it in?
I do not know, but I know that this brief was done for the 2014, and the court overturned the law as a result. It was for the original. Okay. It was allowed.
Thank you. Legislator Ronk.
Thank you, Chair.
Then I'll get to Legislator Green. Just so everyone knows, Legislator Donaldson does want to speak again, so I just want to make sure everyone is heard.
Thank you, Chairman Maloney. You know, this one has really gotten to me personally. It's allowed me to share my story with many, many people. And, you know, somebody had sent me an email saying that it was brave of me to share my story of being bullied when I was a kid so badly that my parents had to take me out of public school. And I'm not brave for sharing my story. The children who are still dealing with this and who are dealing with it worse than I am because of the advent of the internet and social media and poor decision making on some students are the ones who are the heroes every day, trying to just get through the day and trying to better their lives. This is not, as some would say, part of the school-to-prison pipeline. It is not taking the place of the Dignity for All Students Act. This resolution would supplement the Dignity for All Students Act. The Dignity for All Students Act is a great tool for schools to use while the students are in the schools and for things that find a nexus into the schools. But what do you do for the kid who's home on summer break and gets cyberbullied and kills himself? What do you do for the student who's home on winter break and gets bullied over the internet? What do you do on spring break? What do you do in the evenings? The Dignity for All Students Act is a measure that protects students at the schools. We need something that protects the students at the homes. When we create a law, we don't create a law that is a requirement to be charged. It's not a requirement that you charge somebody with this law. It's not a requirement that the schools refer to law enforcement, and it's not a requirement that the officer makes an arrest. The officer has the ability to make an arrest if necessary. And quite frankly, I can't imagine there being more than 10 students who end up being charged with this crime. Students, I shouldn't say students because it's not about the schools, but children. And finally, to address one of the things that Legislator Donaldson had said earlier, this law was never going to be a felony. It is impossible for us to create a felony. It is not within our power. The biggest, the most strict law we can pass is a misdemeanor. We cannot impose more than a year in prison, and we cannot impose more than, believe it's $1,000 fine. Those are the limits on our authority as a county legislature. And hearing from our assistant county attorneys who are